I'd like to introduce the sweet world of Hatch Family Chocolates returns to TLC with the series Little Chocolatiers, following the lives of Steve and Katie Hatch, a married couple who also happen to be little people. With their popular shop in Salt Lake City, the Hatch family tradition of chocolate making continues. From hand-dipped confections to mouth-watering custom creations, the couple and their employees work hard to outdo themselves and keep their customers happy. The pair opened their chocolate store at 390 East 4th Avenue in 2003. There they make and sell chocolates from recipes handed down through generations of the Hatch family. They're now outgrowing that place and have been looking for a place to expand. They have a very unique business story to share with us as well, and would you please welcome with me Steve and Katie Hatch.
So Katie and I kind of laugh every time we're asked to speak because we're so boring. So, you know, if you need to, just get up and kind of walk out.
We're also not very formal.
Yeah, we're so not formal, as you can tell by my dress. But you know, I'm not very computer smart. So Adam back there, we actually met Adam earlier. Oh, way back there. He's actually a computer genius and part of your chamber here. So we're going to ask, you know, if we get in trouble, we'll ask Adam to come up and help us. This is the second time I've actually used PowerPoint. And we put together, you know, just a basic slideshow that we could kind of discuss. So a lot of people hear of us from the TV show, The Little Chocolatiers, and we kind of, pardon the word, what the hell is reality? And, you know, because it's so different. Everybody has these misperceived, like, judgments of what is this business, what is reality, what is all of that. And we kind of have geared our presentation to that. What is reality, and what's Kate and I? So basically, we started out with our first slide.
With our reality.
That's me as a kid, and my sister eating. So basically, Hatch Family Chocolates. My grandmother, she was a hand-dipped chocolate person. She hand-dipped chocolates, but she did it all during the Depression. She learned when she was 13 years old. And she learned at a person's place called Lindsay's, and his candy company was off of 9th South, 7th East area. There's a natural spring that runs through that area. He used to use that spring to cool off his fudge tables and all the different marbles. That's how he would cool his tables. So my grandmother, when she was 13, learned how to dip chocolates. He wouldn't let her dip the real chocolates. Not that I'm really sure that's a real chocolate that I'm dipping, but you know, he used to make her dip just chocolate blocks or just different blocks until she was so good that she could dip the other techniques. So what I remember as a kid, my grandmother would come over to our house and we'd dip chocolates and give them to friends and family. And that was just kind of a fun holiday gift. My father, like at this time, basically picked up all the skills. When he retired, he kind of continued that.
Can I intercept with a great story, not to bore you all, but your father, who was a child during the Depression, has a great memory of your mother dipping. And that was back then, and actually we use rubber aprons now, or you know, the kind that you can just spray off because chocolate sticks. And so she would wear a rubber type or vinyl apron at work in the 30s, whoever she was working for at that point. It might have been C's, I can't remember. But when they would, you know, when they were done for the day, because things were so tight in the Depression and your father's family was very tight, she would throw chocolate on her apron, wrap up the apron, and go home and say, "Here, kids, I've got a treat," and they would just peel off all of the chocolate. It's kind of a fun story, and I think, you know, stuff like that's happening right now, too.
Our staff probably go home with aprons rolled up with chocolate. But, you know, and it really is kind of a cool story because my family really, they didn't have a lot of money. And my grandmother never went to high school, never went to college. She worked really hard for everything that she had. And one of the companies that were hiring during the Depression were chocolate companies, and they hired a lot of women. So she actually did that all through the Depression, and most of her life until she was in her 80s, and then she stopped dipping chocolates for different companies. But that's kind of my background. Katie,
Oh,
that was a cute little picture of Katie.
surprise.
But you know, Katie's from Chicago, and she grew up Irish Italian, totally opposite of me. I grew up in Utah.
My family runs pubs back in the Chicago area. They had a lot of fun. I grew up, there's something to be said about a work ethic, and I think it's there today, don't get me wrong. And that's what I love about having our own company is we hire a lot of kids, teenagers and young college kids, and I love trying to teach that work ethic, especially if it's their first job, because I think that's getting lost in my own personal opinion. But it's what I learned, I was bussing tables and filling salt and pepper shakers at age 10, and I was probably on the payroll at age 12, and I worked all my life, and sure, did I have all my weekends in high school? Maybe not, but I look back and I'm very thankful for having that work ethic, and we had a lot of fun too, growing up, and there's something about growing up in a restaurant family too, and what I love about where we are today is taking that and maybe changing some things, you know, to today, and we really love our staff to death. We try to keep an open relationship, let them voice their things, but also still keep a tight, like, what is Hatch Family Chocolates and what do we want to portray? And sorry, I veered off. I tend to veer off.
Sometimes we have a friend that will say, I want the Steve story, or the Steve version of the story, or the Kate version, so depending on the time. But, you know, it's even Katie, her background, having the restaurants, Katie didn't tell you she actually went to pastry school while she was working at her family's restaurants. She was interested in making pastries and desserts, and she loved that stuff. That's where I kind of came into the picture. But Katie and I, we met through an organization called Little People of America. They do national conferences, and they do them all over the place. But we met in 1998 in Los Angeles. Kate was oblivious to me.
True.
But, you know, we actually were just friends then. And then a few years later, we decided, we wanted to be a little more than just friends. So I moved out to Chicago and I took a job just doing whatever.
And of course it was one of the worst winters in like the last 30 years at that time.
So that following summer I moved back to Salt Lake. But, you know, I decided I wanted to come back and work on schooling. So I came back. And Katie actually took mercy on me and came out here too. So her and I were trying to figure out what we wanted to do with our lives, where we wanted to go, what we wanted to be. And that's kind of how the current Hatch Family Chocolates evolved. Katie took a part-time job as a pastry chef. When the season was over, they waved goodbye. And that's
when I started working with your dad. And I had never worked with chocolate in the scale as like with your dad. I've done molded chocolates and I've done, you know, desserts with chocolate and sculpture to some degree, but I learned hand dipping from his father, and we hung out in his licensed kitchen and he taught me all the skills, and one thing led to another. As we were discussing opening a dessert bar type place, we thought, well, let's take the chocolates forward. Let's continue this and add on as we go, see what happens.
And we even during this time, it was really a neat experience because we ended up enrolling into some small business classes. I know, no pun intended, small business or small business. But you know, we enrolled through the small business development centers. They offer different classes, and we enrolled in, I think it was a 6 or an 8 week program down at Utah Valley at the time, but I think Salt Lake Community College and Weaver State also have campuses. And it was really helpful because it helped us figure out what type of a company